scored. It was my last college play I ever played. And I think that was the first time ever, as I laid in the end zone, will I ever play again. I was done. That was a wrap. I was 6 years. It was done. We were over. We lost. What's next? Right? For the first time, while there was uncertainty, I mean, listen, going from Division II to the NFL, right? But that was it, man. And I laid in the end zone. And, I was ready to go attack what came next. And, that's what I did. Preparation, right? What's your game plan? What are you doing? Right? You got to have a plan, man.
Welcome to Limitless Minds, the podcast where curiosity meets greatness. Each week, co-hosts DJ Eitzen and Harry Wilson sit down with some of the most exceptional individuals across sports, business, and beyond. From world-class athletes and peak performance coaches to visionary CEOs, entrepreneurs, and influential authors, they dive deep into the stories and strategies that drive extraordinary success. If you're ready to discover what it takes to be truly limitless and push beyond your own limits, you're in the right place.
On today's episode of Limitless Minds, we have Charly Martin, a former NFL wide receiver who played from 2009 to 2013 with teams like the Chargers, the Panthers, the Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Jaguars. He has a tremendous story of grit, resilience, and endurance as he took a path from under-recruited to undrafted to a journeyman in the NFL. He transitioned post-career to be an executive at several successful startups, including Wheels Up, West to East, and Reel. Charly is a good friend with a passion for building legacy and impacting people. Enjoy. All right. On today's episode of Limitless Minds, we have the Charly Martin. It's about damn time you joined this podcast. We had to go through all your people and your agents and your managers.
It was a lot, man.
Yeah, golly, man. We had to pay a significant amount of money.
DJ, I actually think, I think it wasn't until Vegas when Harry finally saw me with the mic in my hand. I don't think he was a believer, DJ.
Yeah, that was a tryout.
He saw me with the mic in my hand, and then I got the invite.
I love it.
And then I got the invite.
That was a tryout.
That's great.
And you passed. So now you're on. No, but
it was all.
No, I mean, for our listeners, I mean, I've known Charly Martin now for over a decade. I've had the luxury of seeing him wear number 14 for the Seattle Seahawks, which was great. I think I really got to know him probably post-career and more so, and some of the work that he's doing professionally. We'll get into that a little bit, but Charly's quickly become one of my best friends, somebody that I use as a mentor, as a sounding board. On random weekdays and weeknights and whatnot. We've been on some long calls together, and so I just respect his, the game relative to not only what it does from a business perspective and certainly what he did as an athlete, but maybe even and more importantly as a father and a husband, doing life together type of stuff that we get to do. So just grateful to share you and your knowledge, Charly, with our audience. As we talk about mindset and peak performance and just kind of optimizing, what we're doing on an everyday basis. And so welcome.
Welcome, man.
Well, I love it. First of all, thanks for having me. Like we said, been a long time coming. I was waiting for the invite. But listen, you guys know how I feel about what you guys do for a living, what we do when we wake up every day, Limitless Minds, and everything that comes with it. I'm a believer. I'm a partner. I'm all in, and excited to chat with you guys for a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So, I mean, real quick, let's give folks a little bit of the background. As I mentioned in the intro, you had a nice, really, really awesome career in the NFL, got a chance to play in some really great cities. But I think a lot of your, why, kind of who you are, to me at least, is a lot of, even before the NFL began, right? Some of that grittiness and that journey that it takes to get to where you got to get to from where you were from, right? And so take us back to Walla Walla. Walla Walla. And growing up there, and then some of your college career. Tell us about that,
Charly. Real quick though, man. I've had that Uchi Wally Wally song in my head all day. Like Harry and I were just playing it before we came on.
the town that is so great they named it twice. Walla Walla, Washington. Best strawberries in the world. I'm gonna hit you with a quick fact. You're not supposed to eat strawberries year round, right? I think where our world is in our life, everyone wants everything now and this and that, and you got to be able to get a strawberry. No, man. Growing up in Walla Walla, Washington, you get strawberries for 3 weeks. That's when they're in season. That's when you eat them. Outside of that, don't eat strawberries. Anyways, quick.
Good to know. Yeah. So I mean, so you grew up in Walla Walla. What's in Walla Walla, man? I've never been to Walla Walla. What's in Walla Walla? What's going on there?
Eastern Washington, farmland, wheat fields, alfalfa. it's interesting as you grow up as a kid and you get into life, and we are all athletes. I don't remember whether it was college or when's the first time they list your hometown, right? Like you see that in the program or whatever, and it was always Walla Walla. It was always Walla Walla. And as a kid, born and raised in Walla Walla, both generations from my mom's side, my dad's side, dryland wheat farmers. They were in it. They homesteaded there. So Walla Walla has a lot of history. The high school field, the high school stadium is Martin Stadium. After so I'm Charles William Martin the fourth. As Harry knows, we have Charles William Martin the fifth, which, just so you know, with the wife was non-negotiable. We were going to have Charles William Martin the fifth. So it was never how many kids are you going to have. It's we're going to have kids until we have the fifth. Right? And then,
that's right.
And then the name is
feeling.
the name's not up for discussion, right? It was, but Courtney was all in on that. But anyways, Charles William Martin the first, he was the fastest man in the world. I know, Harry, that's hard for you to believe. But he was the fastest man in the world. Has actually a really, really cool story about the Olympics and playing professional baseball and coming back to Walla Walla to farm. But the track and field at Whitman College is named after him, which is now for Whitman College. The high school also uses it. So I say that, man, I was always, it's interesting, and I get chills talking about it. There's just something about where you're from, and my journey was a little bit different. I didn't get to stay in Walla Walla. Trials, tribulations, moving around. I ended up, my mom got divorced and my dad passed away at an early age, and I ended up in Spokane, Washington, and then I ended up in northern New Mexico, Farmington, New Mexico, middle of nowhere, right? But I say all that because, man, the first time I got a list at hometown. Where's your hometown? Walla Walla, Washington. Walla Walla. And I'll never forget when my high school buddies, or my buddies who I grew up with from fourth grade on in Farmington, New Mexico, man, they weren't happy. I got phone calls. They saw Walla Walla in the program. They're like, you're not from Walla Walla. You're from Farmington, New Mexico. But so full circle, man, when I signed with the Seahawks in 2012 and being back in Seattle, I think God has a plan. God has a journey for your life. And I was meant to be back here. And I signed with the Seahawks in 2012 and, still here, doing life here, raising my family here. Walla Walla is a quick 4-hour drive. By the way, too, just another quick nugget. Harry, I know you like a nice glass of red or white. I didn't even know they made wine in California, Napa or something like that. Walla Walla, Washington, the best wine in the world. Oh. And you do one thing, Harry. We're loyal, right? We support our friends. We support our family. Everyone's in the wine business in Walla Walla, and that's where we get our wine from. So if you haven't been, go check it out. It's an amazing place.
That's really, what's funny, Harry? I was thinking about this prior to this conversation. I've never one time talked to you, Charlie, about football, like your past in college, professional. So I'm really excited to hear about that today. And I think a lot of it comes from and I'm sure the listeners' consensus, your humility. And, and I think that's a really awesome trait. It was funny that just this morning, my Bible study that I had, it said that the verse was in Luke 14. It said that all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all those who humble themselves will be exalted. And I thought about you when I read that, because it's just like, how cool is it? We've known each other for 7 years now, and I know nothing about your NFL career, your college career. So I'm really excited to hear about your journey there, and really your mindset. You go from Walla Walla, Washington, to New Mexico, then to West Texas A&M. Is that right?
That's it. That's it.
Okay, that's it. That's what the
6
research
years,
said.
baby. Right. 6 years. Two red shirts, man. I was taking all I could take.
Well, tell us about that, man. Tell us about your college experience and what was that like?
I think DJ, it's one of those things. I think life is about the different phases, right? Life's about humanity, right? Life's about humility, right? It's just, we're not promised tomorrow, right? And I think I learned that at a young age. You talk about mindset, and you talk about how you wake up, and you talk about what you choose to do, right? And I know your listeners know, and neutral is such an important part of how we all live our day. But I know you hear people, you can choose happy, right? You can choose, right? That doesn't mean that there's not different circumstances. That doesn't mean that, Harry, you woke up with something, and DJ, you woke up with something, and I woke up with something, and we're going through different things. I'm not discrediting any of that, right? I'm not discrediting people's situation. but we can choose that, right? A good friend of mine who you guys know really well, one of my best and dearest friends, has become super successful, Gaines McCulloch, who is a buddy who works with Limitless. But right, we were texting last week, Harry, when we were on the road, and it's life by design. It's life by design. It's not life by accident. That's not how this thing works, right? It's life by design. And if you have that understanding and you're willing to shape your day, to wake up with a certain mindset, to wake up with a certain belief. And then also, I think one of the most important things, be confident with what you choose, DJ. Be confident with what you choose, Harry. And we may all three have different things. It's not the world telling us those answers, right? It's us telling us those answers. And that's what shapes our life. And I think that, I look back, man, and no pun intended, it's real. Like, I was the kid running around from the day I can remember with a football, playing catch with my dad in my backyard, doing that stuff and telling people one thing: I'm going to play in the NFL. I'm going to play in the NFL. I think that's where, as I look at this journey and now having 3 kids of my own, like, it's clear. I don't have a lot of memories. I've had a few concussions. I've been hit in the head a few times, right? I just turned 41. But one thing is very clear: it's not like playing in the NFL, right? And you look at the path and the journey of Walla Walla, and then my mom gets divorced and remarried, and we're in Spokane, Washington, and then you have friends. You're in 3rd or 4th grade. You think you're on top of the world, and then you move to Farmington, New Mexico, right? I remember telling some of my buddies in Spokane, they go like, Mexico. I'm like, no, not Mexico. Like, I'm still in the U.S.
It's a new Mexico,
right?
It's brand new.
And so you end up there, and then you're going through stuff. But I'll tell you, it was interesting. Another guy who shaped my life in a big way is Colin Henderson. And, Colin was a little bit of my mentor. And I remember watching Colin play football as a kid, and I idolized him. And I'd put on his helmet, I'd put on his pads, because he was living in Seattle and they had youth football. And I wasn't playing there. And I remember I moved to Farmington, New Mexico, feeling like any kid at that age would feel. You're leaving your friends, you're leaving, Washington. It's like, where are we going? What are we doing? The first thing I did, and this is a moment that's like stuck in my mind, I got the yellow pages, back in the phone books, right? I hit the yellow pages, and I found the Boys and Girls Club of Farmington, and I called them to find out when youth football started, right? And they had tackle football. I was, going into 4th grade, right? And that's like a vivid memory. And so here we go. I'm moving to New Mexico, and I remember calling, and that was the first time I got to play football in 4th grade, and that's where it all started. And it was my first year, and obviously, football was always my passion, man. I'm a passion guy. I think love that. Once again,
feel that, man.
I tell people all the time, I love life. I love the game of life. We played a game of life as a kid, right? You got the car and you spin the wheel. And Harry, do you want to have a kid or a boy or a girl or the dog, or do you want to turn right, or do you want to turn left, or do you want to go straight?
Right.
But isn't that life, though? Don't we all get to do life that way? And listen, depending on which way you go, yes, there's different outcomes and there's different realities. But at the end of the game, or at the end of the day, we all have that choice, man. We all have that choice, and we're all playing the game of life. And what I think is so beautiful, we can all play it different, right? Yeah. We can all play it different. And there's not a right or wrong, right? And so I think that as I look back on how I shaped it and, what I do, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't. I think I'm right where I'm meant to be. I'm grounded in today. And, I try to enjoy today like it's the last.
Yeah. So like at West Texas, like you mentioned, kind of like, there really wasn't, like, you were going to play in the NFL, right? You'd made this decision. There was an internal ad campaign you'd built in your head, right? Someone do. I think for many people, they end up at like a West Texas A&M, not Texas A&M, not University, not
Mexico, not Mexico, New Mexico, not Texas A&M. West Texas A&M, yeah.
Right. And so, like, I mean, I went to a smaller school. I went to a 1AA school in Richmond, and just the numbers, you see less guys make it to the league, right?
Okay.
So at any point during that journey at West Texas, did you feel like that dream was going to be deterred, or was it by design that you'd go to a school like that where you could break records and open up doors for yourself? Like how did that go?
Yeah,
it's that 6-year term at Texas A&M, West Texas.
It's interesting because you can go so much farther back, right? And you can look at decisions or things that were thrown at you, and everything said, this kid's crazy, right? Or he's just a little kid running around that doesn't know any better, right? And I think that one of the things I'll never forget, 6th grade, it's career day. You're presenting on what you're going to do, right? And you're going to come into the class and you've wrote an essay. I was at Country Club Elementary School. And you're going to come into the class.
That sounds like someplace DJ
sound like no, I was going to say, Harry, don't leave me.
Right? Okay. And you know, I said, no, we were definitely not members of a country club, and it was not a country
Harry
club.
is.
That was the name of the school. But I'll never forget, I come in, man, I'm excited. I got the essay. I got the paper. Not a shocker what I was going to do when I grow up. I'm going to play in the National Football League. I'm going to be a professional football player. I had to represent. I was called after class and, you know, basically, you know, hey, listen, but I need you to come back tomorrow. I need you to rewrite your essay, and you're going to get a chance to represent on a real profession. Once again, no pun intended.
Right.
On something that's real. And I had to represent that being in the National Football League, doing in 6th grade what I wanted to do and had the passion to do. I'm already having people tell me, no, that's not possible. That's not going to happen, right? And oh, by the way, Harry, I'm not in Richmond at some, you know, I don't even know the name of the school you went to. That's so fancy I can't even say the name with the sports.
Collegiate. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean it's
collegiate. I was in Farmington, New Mexico, man, right? And I'm having to represent. Right? You know, so you look at society and you look at what our kids face and you look at what we were faced. But the funny thing is, I don't ever remember wavering. Like I really don't. And maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't really remember. But if you fast forward, you know, to high school and playing high school football, and you know, as a you know, we were in high school, junior high. So 9th grade was in junior high. I didn't go to high school till 10th grade. But 10th grade, I'm playing JV, right, in Farmington, New Mexico, and we're still going. I'll never forget, in 10th grade, we were at a new high school, Piedra Vista High School. We make the state championship. Okay, we make the state championship, and on our JV team, our quarterback, we had a really good quarterback. His name was Joel Wood, but we got a dress for the high school varsity championship game, right? It's hosted. It's in Farmington. We're in uniform, man. This is awesome, right? And I was a receiver. Joel was a quarterback, and I'll never forget. And I was happy as heck for Joel. Right. But guess what? They put him in at receiver in the state championship game, right? He was our quarterback. He was a receiver. He was a quarterback, right? I was the receiver. Yeah. Right. And Joel got to play in the state championship game. But I just, you know, these are just some of the things that have stuck with me. Yeah. And then you finish, and you know, there's not really any scholarship offers, right? Yeah. And where are you going to go, and what are you going to do? And my dream was to come back to Washington State. That was my dream. That's where Colin Henderson played. My family had gone there. My sister was at school there. I applied there. I got an academic scholarship there. Mike Price was the head coach. You know, I had connections. I went to football camp. I used to sleep on Colin Henderson's couch. They were gonna let me walk on. Mike Price leaves and goes to Alabama. Bill Doba takes over. Right? It's spring of my senior year. Now what? I'm not an invited walk-on. I have nothing really within the football program at Washington State. What are you going to do? Right? Where are you going to go? And I got a call. One of my high school coaches, good friends, who used to go to this camp in high school in Heber, Arizona, called. He was now the new quarterbacks coach at West Texas A&M. Come down, see it. You know, Charlie's got to get down here. And I go down there, and, you know, I don't even remember the details, and I don't know if they even matter. But for a second, you felt wanted. Like they called and come down. I don't know if I was wanted. That's the interesting thing about this story. Like I'm not really sure. So I'm all in. I'm gonna go to you know, you hear about these recruiting trips. I stayed at the Holiday Inn Express, and I went to Brahms. I don't know, it's a Texas thing, but Brahms like hamburgers, ice cream. And I get a call. I'm about to go. It's August, and the only guy I knew, who was my high school coach's buddy, calls me. He's like, "Hey, Charlie, I took another job. I'm out." And he had gone to some other school, right? And I'm like, "Well, I'm leaving tomorrow. Like, I'm driving to West Texas, right? Yeah, come with me. Go to this other, you know, come to this school, this, that." And so now I'm rolling into West Texas. I didn't even realize they were 0-11 the year before, right? Here we go, man. And I find myself in Canyon, Texas, don't even really know if anyone knew who I was, to be honest,
Yeah.
because the guy who had recruited me had left. I wasn't on a scholarship. I was on an academic scholarship. So, you know, I think that you look back through that journey and it's like, but I don't remember ever wavering. I'm sure that there were some thoughts and different things, but like it was still moving along. And I think an interesting thing, you think about mindset. I called Colin and I said, you know, Colin, what do I do? What do I do? Right? Do I go to West Texas? Right? Do I walk on at Washington State? Because the guy's like, if you believe in yourself, it doesn't really matter where I go. If I still had that belief, he asked me one question. He said, Charlie, do you still believe you're going to play in the NFL? I said, 100%. 100%. He goes, then you better go where you're going to play.
Yeah.
You better go where you're going to play. You know, and I think that as I talk to kids now and do different things, listen, we all know you get missed from high school to college. There's too many high school athletes, man. It's impossible. You're going to miss kids, right? Farmington, New Mexico, this, that, whatever, maybe not develop. There's one thing that I do believe. I don't think the NFL misses. The NFL may miss on first round, second round, undrafted here or there. But if you're good enough and you play, they will find you. That's a fact. That's a fact, right? Great. And you don't know what you're dealing with, you know, listen, it's a whole different thing today than it was back then. But, you know, coaches and recruiting, and they got their guys and politics. And Colin made it very clear. If you want to play in the NFL and you think you're going to play in the NFL, you go where you can play. And I ended up at West Texas A&M.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What does the number 323 mean to you?
You know, I think, listen, there was a lot from pulling in that parking lot that day, Harry. Another vision I could see clearly. I had a maroon Denali, Harry. And in West Texas A&M, Texas A&M was the Buffaloes. We were maroon. We were maroon. I had a maroon Denali. And I'm pulling in the parking lot. We got it used from our friend in Mexico. Don't worry. But I pull in, man. And from that moment, Jones Hall, the dorm I stayed in, to 323 yards, my last college game, my last college play. You know, there's so much between that. 6 years, red shirts, surgeries, coaches, on and on. But it's funny, I was cooking breakfast for my kids this morning, and my oldest son, Charles William Martin V, he was doing something, and he said, "Hey, Dad, what's it mean to leave an imprint on a place, or to put?" He was reading something. It was like he left. You know, they left their fingerprint on there. He's like, well, "What is? I don't understand. What do you mean you leave a fingerprint on a place?" He's like, "What's that mean?" And I was like, "Charlie, well, really what they're talking about is legacy, right? Like, what do you do to impact the place?" And he's like, "Well, have you ever left your fingerprint on a place before?" And I'm like, well, you know, interesting. I was like, but I think that you have to look back and see if you changed the way of anywhere. Did you help influence good, right? Did you help create positive outcome? And, you know, I'll tell you one thing that I am pretty confident in. And it wasn't just me, and there was a lot of people and a lot of coaches and a lot of teammates. But I'll tell you, pulling into West Texas A&M in the fall of 2023 and leaving there in the fall of 2008, it's a different university. It was a different program. It was a different mindset, right? So now I look, they're one of the best Division II programs in the country. They have one of the best stadiums in the country, right? And I'm not saying that was because of Charly Martin. I'm saying that because there was a group of guys that came together that shared a similar mindset, that didn't really care about anything else, right? We were there to win. We were there to be our best. We were there to get a great education. And we were in Canyon, Texas. Man, I wish I could tell you guys what this place looked like when I got there. Harry, they offered me a used jock strap, man, when I went through the
Hey,
I'm like, yo, I'm good on the jock strap.
Yeah, Harry still wears a used jock strap for the
record. But you know, it's so funny. We laugh, but like, yeah, man, 323 yards my senior year, 6th year. I had a red shirt as a freshman. I had a medical as a sophomore. And you know, the thing about Division II athletics back then, they're always bringing in guys from D1 or junior college. I mean, they're trying to get better every day. They don't have a lot of money. So you know, what's interesting, and I think this is one of the best life lessons. It's interesting because I think this applies across life. If you do the right thing and you're a great human and you bust your ass, sometimes you get taken advantage of because you know what? Hey, Charlie doesn't need the money. He's going to show up tomorrow and do just as great. He's going to put in just as much effort. His school's getting paid for via academics. I'm going to use this money to go get this guy because I'm not sure if this guy will show up like these other guys, right? Yeah. And there was a group of us who had became captains and you know, we led with that way. And so it's interesting, right? It's interesting how that works and how you build programs and how you build legacy. But man, I wouldn't change a thing. But last game, Harry, you probably know the stats better. I don't know, 15 catches, 16 catches, 323 yards with the Division II playoffs. Let's playing go. Abilene Christian. They're our rivals.
Oh, Abilene.
They were stacked. We were stacked. Obviously, no defense, apparently, because I think the score was like 90-something to 68. But man, it was something I'll never forget. And I'll tell you, I'll wrap it up. But it was late in the fourth quarter. The game was obviously over, right? Like we weren't going to catch them. I had a great game. I had 4 touchdowns at this point, and I don't even remember exactly what it was. But something I either needed a few yards to break a Division II record. There was something that was important, right, back then. Mm-hmm. And so Keith Knoll was my college quarterback, my dearest friends, just amazing influence in my life, who ended up getting drafted that year in the 6th round of the St. Louis Rams. But so they call Z Missile, Harry, Z Missile, right? So if you remember the Texas Tech offense back in the day, the air raid, the run and shoot, we were mini Texas Tech, right? And so he called Z Missile, man, and it was a little slip screen, and I took it to the house, 51 yards. Scored. It was my last college play I ever played. And I think that was the first time ever as I laid in the end zone, will I ever play again. Not doubt, but knowing that was it for college, right? I was done. That was a wrap. I was 6 years. It was done. We were over. We lost. What's next, right? For the first time, while there was uncertainty going from high school to college, I mean, listen, going from Division II to the NFL, right? But that was it, man. And I laid in the end zone, and you know, I was ready to go attack what came next, and you know, that's what I did.
That's incredible. That's great. Yeah. So you're laying there, right? So you get up, you know, and game's over. Then, like, how do you go from that and in preparation for what's next? Tell us a little bit about the next chapter of your life and going to the NFL.
Well, I think you used the word right that we all use: preparation. Right? What's your game plan? What are you doing? Right? You gotta have a plan, man. Mm-hmm. Right? Another tip, you know, it's so funny. I know we all have kids, but if you have kids now, you feel like you get all of these lessons. You know, I sometimes look at my kids, I'm like, you guys think like I'm coaching you every single day, right? But it's like you feel like you have all this knowledge to share, right? And Harry, hey, real, right? Like we didn't have fathers, right, all the way through our life. Our dads passed away, right? And so I tried, and DJ too. I tried to be something because I loved my dad, man. He was my best friend. Right. I still think about today, if my dad was around, he'd still be my best friend. Right. And seeing that and these families that get to work together. So it's like you try to share, but I joke with my kids, like, am I overdoing it? Like, am I coaching you on everything? But I was explaining to my son what's like, we're not just going to we don't go through the motions. The Martins don't go through the motions, Harry. Like if we do something, we're going to go do it. Right. Like we're not going to just go through the motions. And so I think that in life, like you can't do that. Right. And so I think a plan. And at that point, you know, DJ, I had a plan. I had found an agent, you know, once again, I think relationships, I think that, you know, I'm in the relationship business now, I think. And, you know, I had made relationships. I used every connection I could to get an agent, right? Because that whole game. And remember, I hired an agent, Jack Mills, one of the most legendary agents. And, you know, I agreed to pay my whole way on everything. He wasn't going to pay, they weren't going to pay for anything. No training, no combine. But, right, I knew one thing. I knew that I had to go work, right? So finished 08. I moved to Scottsdale, Arizona with my quarterback. We're in a little apartment, man. We're getting food delivered. We're doing the whole thing. We're training at this place in Scottsdale, right? Like we're doing it all, you know. Neither of us get invited to the combine. But we were bound and determined, and we did what it took. And, you know, for me, I knew I had to run a good time in the 40. I had to be in the 4.5s, right? And so ended up doing that and having an amazing pro day.
What'd you run?
And I knew. What do you think I ran?
Well, you said you're in the 4.5, so I'm gonna say.
I knew I had to run in the 4.5.
I'm gonna say a high 4.5. I'm gonna say a 4.59.
First one I clocked a 4.43. My second one, I was a 4.51, right? But at pro day at West Texas A&M, we set it up, and here's all. And this is the thing, right? They're gonna, like, if you're good enough, they'll find you, right? Yeah. And we had this awesome pro day, and Keith and I crushed it, and so I, at that point, you've done what you've had to do in terms of what the NFL says. Hey, you got to check these boxes, right? And so we did that, and I knew one thing come draft time. I knew that I had to have an agent, because a lot of times, right, there's these up and coming agents and they'll offer you different things, but can they really get the phone answered, right? And so I knew I had to have an agent that could get the phone answered. So if Charly Martin goes undrafted, I need a guy that can pick up the phone and, hey, Harry, give this guy a shot. Right. And my only thing was, going into the 2009 NFL draft, was one thing. It was really simple. Get me in the door. Right. All I need, get me in the door. At that point, you get me in the door, I'll take it from there. Right. Mm-hmm. That's all I wanted. That's all I needed. And that's what happened. I obviously went undrafted. My quarterback went in the 6th round, which was awesome. I thought I was going to maybe go 6th or 7th. I was fielding the calls. I was doing the thing. But I go undrafted. And, it's interesting at this point, I think it's still a thing today, is, if you're getting in that 6th, 7th round, right, the money, the signing bonus, right, like at some point going undrafted, I had 5 offers, right? So immediately we're looking at who are the receivers, where do you have a chance to make the team, right? Everyone knows that the rosters are 90, they cut to 53, right? So like, it wasn't about just signing. Where can I go make the team, right? Yeah. And so I was able to choose, and I signed with the San Diego Chargers. Just go through the motions. And so I think that in life, like, you can't do that, right? And so I think a plan. And at that point, DJ, I had a plan. I had found an agent. Once again, I think relationships. I think that